From its shadowy dominion over the bustling streets of New York to its glittering reign in the casinos of Las Vegas, the Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, wove a web of power, fear, and intrigue that captured the American psyche. Yet, as the 1960s dawned, this once unchallenged criminal empire, well, it began to crumble. Long before the glitz and glamour of modern movies painted a romanticized picture of the Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, literally translated as the thing of ours, was already weaving its intricate web into the very fabric of American society. The period leading up to the 1980s can be aptly termed the golden age of the Mafia, a time when its influence was not just prominent but pervasive. The roots of La Cosa Nostra can be traced back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when waves of Italian immigrants moved to the United States in search of better opportunities. Among these immigrants were members of the Italian criminal underworld. As they settled, particularly in major cities like New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia, these individuals began to establish local crime syndicates that would later evolve into the powerful mafia families we recognize today. By the 1950s and 1960s, these families had expanded their reach considerably. The Mafia's code of omertà, a vow of silence and loyalty combined with a hierarchical structure, ensured that operations ran smoothly and that the bosses wielded significant power. With their hands in various illicit enterprises, from bootlegging during the Prohibition era to the drug trade, the Mafia's financial prowess grew exponentially. However, while the Mafia was in its prime, the feds were ready to bring them down. But how? The name Joe Valachi remains inextricably linked to the dramatic unraveling of many of the Mafia's best-kept secrets. Before his pivotal decision in 1963, La Cosa Nostra's inner workings were shrouded in mystery, with both the general public and law enforcement often left in the dark about its structure, operations, and membership. However, with Valachi's groundbreaking revelations, a beam of light was cast on this shadowy world, revealing intricate details that would shake the foundation of the American Mafia. Born in 1904, Joseph Michael Valachi was not the most prominent or powerful member of the Mafia. Rather, he was a foot soldier, a rank-and-file member who had been a part of the Genovese crime family since the 1930s. Over the years, he participated in various illegal activities, from narcotics trafficking to racketeering. Despite his relatively low status within the organization, Valachi was privy to a wealth of information about its structure and operations. In the early 1960s, Valachi found himself incarcerated in the same prison as Genovese family boss Vito Genovese. Due to a series of misunderstandings in internal Mafia politics, Valachi came to believe that Genovese had marked him for death. This growing paranoia, combined with the pressures of a 20-year sentence for narcotics trafficking, began to weigh heavily on him. In 1963, amidst the backdrop of fear and distrust, Valachi made the unprecedented move to become a government informant. Offering his knowledge in exchange for protection, Valachi agreed to testify before a Senate committee led by Senator John L. McClellan, which was investigating organized crime. His testimony, which was broadcasted on national television, was the first public account of La Cosa Nostra's existence, structure, and operations. Valachi's detailed descriptions of the Mafia's hierarchy, rituals, and even its sacred code of omertà provided a treasure trove of information for law enforcement. For the first time, officials had confirmation of the 5 families of New York, their leadership, and their respective territories. Moreover, Valachi's willingness to sing emboldened other insiders to come forward, giving rise to further investigations and prosecutions. And that's when the police knew they had to strike back. The audacious revelations of Joe Valachi not only stunned the American public, but also served as a catalyst for a renewed and intensified commitment from law enforcement to dismantle the national crime syndicate. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, which had been somewhat skeptical and dismissive of the Mafia's reach prior to the 1960s, shifted gears, marking the beginning of a prolonged and determined battle against organized crime. For much of its early history, the FBI, under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, downplayed the existence and significance of organized crime. It's said that Hoover was more focused on political radicals and civil rights activists than on the mob. However, Valachi's detailed exposé, broadcast for the entire nation to see, made it impossible to ignore the pervasive influence of the Mafia any longer. In response to this newfound public knowledge and mounting pressure, the FBI dramatically increased resources and manpower dedicated to combating the Mafia. A special Mafia busting unit was formed, with agents trained specifically to understand and counteract the operations of organized crime. Wiretaps, surveillance operations, and even undercover agents became instrumental tools in the FBI's renewed approach. Despite this newfound determination, the initial efforts to curb the Mafia's power were met with limited success. Several factors contributed to this. The Mafia had spent decades embedding itself into the very fabric of human society. From labor unions to legitimate businesses, their influence was vast and deeply rooted. Extracting them from these powerful positions proved to be a Herculean task. Moreover, the Mafia's code of silence, or omertà, was rigorously adhered to by its members. Even with the knowledge that informants existed within their ranks, the Mafia was often able to use fear and loyalty to prevent more members from testifying. Despite the heat from the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, the Mafia persisted through the later half of the 20th century. Their resilience can be attributed to their ability to adapt and evolve. As old revenue streams became riskier, they ventured into new territories, from narcotics to white-collar crimes. Moreover, the Mafia's influence was not just built on crime, it was built on community. In many neighborhoods, they were seen as protectors or benefactors, further complicating law enforcement's mission. Las Vegas, often dubbed the Sin City, witnessed a transformational shift in its power dynamics during the latter half of the 20th century. For years, the Mafia had held significant sway over the glittering casino scene, ensuring a steady stream of profits channeled into their coffers. But as the 1960s drew to a close, a pivotal change was on the horizon. The Nevada state legislature, recognizing the need to rid the state's most lucrative industry of organized crime, passed a groundbreaking law in 1969. This legislation facilitated corporate ownership of casinos, marking a strategic departure from the previous licensing protocols that often favored individual proprietors, many of whom had ties to the Mafia. With corporations entering the fray, the casino landscape began to evolve rapidly. The Mafia's once unshakable grip on Las Vegas's lucrative casino industry began to wane. Corporate entities brought with them a level of scrutiny, transparency, and operational efficiency that made it challenging for the mob to maintain its clandestine hold. Moreover, the influx of corporate funds led to the construction of bigger and more lavish resorts, pushing out smaller Mafia-controlled establishments. This seismic shift didn't just alter the face of Las Vegas, it had broader economic implications. The city transformed from a haven for organized crime to a legitimate business hub, attracting investors, tourists, and entertainers from all over the world. As the bright lights of the Strip shone brighter, the shadows of the Mafia began to recede, signaling the end of a defining era for Las Vegas. If you like this video, then make sure to drop a like and don't forget to comment down below which criminal activities you'd like us to cover next. And as always, thank you very much for choosing to spend your time with us today. We'll see you in our next video.